Hello everyone who want to study physiology with us. I hope you will connect with our channel. At first, this channel for Ukrainian students who want to study physiology in our biotechnology university, and we have first class in this year, first practical class, and the term of our class for today is the methods of physiology research. And at first we discuss about organizational matters and start to study physiology. What is this physiology, subject and problems of physiology, branches of modern physiology, the methods of investigation in physiology, and some rules of work in a laboratory. Then we will see some video about fixation of animals, immobilization of animals, and different videos about the types of operation in a laboratory, and of course the surgical instruments. Always I will give usually I will give the links for video files in YouTube. This video will help you to understand difficult terms of physiology and help you to have more information. We have not so much hours for work in classes, so this video just for understanding more difficult process in organism and in tissues and organs, some organs. So let's start. It is the teachers of our department. Usually in English groups works sometimes I'm as a candidate of biological science, associate professor, PhD doc Vodopyanova Larisa, and the professor of veterinary science, our teacher, and the lecture of your classes, it is Bobritska Olga. And we have two more teachers. These teachers work on Ukrainian groups, maybe sometimes will help us. This is a plan of our discipline. Do you see it's physiology of animals for veterinary medicine, and we have completely 270 hours. It is a big discipline for 2 semesters. This semester in autumn we have 2 modules, first and the second module, and next year winter springtime we have 3 modules. So completely it is 5 modules on our discipline. A lot of lectures, a lot of laboratory classes. For first semester, do you see it is the first final lesson, physiology of excitability process and central nerve system and sensory physiology. The second one, it is the physiology of hemodynamics and breathing. It is enough for first semester, and at the end of this semester we have just a credit without any marks. Just we go the next semester or just stopped and do it one more time. The second semester, it is a 3 final lesson 3. Blood physiology, next one physiology of digestive system. We've discussed about metabolism, about thermal physiology, and excretory process. And the end of our discipline, we will study endocrine system, lactation, and sensory physiology, maybe on the first semester, maybe in the end of the year. It depends on the plan of our work. Usually we move this term on the end of the year. So how I said, we have the YouTube channel, but this channel has the practical or practicals for all year, but only in Ukrainian language. If you understand a little bit, maybe Russian language, maybe Ukrainian, on this channel we will have a lot of information, a lot of practical classes, a lot of video, but only Ukrainian, unfortunately. In future, I hope we all together can to finish all English videos for our discipline. But you have the Moodle page. You know how we work with this, but now we discussed about how we work with the physiology of animals on this page, and about what we will have on this page. At first, books. A lot of books. I have three books for work with students with physiology. First book, it is our basic book. This is our general book for homework, and every class I will have the home work for students. I will give you this information and pages where you can find the more information about every class. This book we just can to download on your gadget, on your computer, maybe phone, but smartphone, but it's a heavy file, a lot of gigabytes, so we should be have this place on your disk. And one more book, additional book for our work, it is a human physiology, very good book, and animal physiology. No, sometimes the students want to use the medical physiology. 90% of all information for veterinary physiology and for medical physiology is the same. So we can use Ganon's reviews of medical physiology the same way how animal physiology. So 2 books for human physiology we have and can use it. Also we have on the top of our page, we have the practical from our department. It's normal physiology of animals. In this book we have a lot of lab works. We will have every class video about lab works, and we will discuss about this lab works, and usually our students have a protocol on the end of each lab works, and is a way to write all your results which you have on the lab. Next, what I have, it is a plan. As a plan of theoretical classes and lecture course and practical classes, what we do each week. And I hope you will find this file. And today for these 2 weeks, first weeks, 2 weeks, we have 2 lectures, methods of physiological research, physiology of excitability process, and electronic potential in cells. it is the first two topics for this first 2 weeks. But unfortunately, I waited students on our classes, and nobody connected to us. So I do this video for students, and maybe you can download this video, maybe listen it online. So we use this plane for lecture and the plane for practical classes. A lot of practical classes for this semester. Do you see a lot of weeks for work and practical classes for these 2 works, physiology and subject. What is this? Methods of physiological research, physiology of excitability process, and electronic potential in cells. So it is for start. Today we have this practice, and we'll discuss about what is this physiology, and physiology, what methods in physiology usually students to use. Next part of our page in a Moodle. Usually we have the blue button. Blue button, it is the online classes which connect students with the teacher, and online the teacher discuss every term. We can connect with teacher, but sometimes we can't connect with the Moodle. It's a problem because sometimes just our site don't work. Sometimes our server can't connect online. So we usually have links. I give you a lot of links for video on YouTube. As usual, this video not so big, short video. For example, the cell, plasma membrane, passive transport, active transport. It is for first 2 our classes, which now we discuss. We can use this video for understanding this term. And give the lecture classes. It's not our lecture, it's a lecture from the medical university all over the world. Sometimes it is the USA, sometimes it is Ukrainian, sometimes in other countries. So first lecture I give to you. It's part first for resting membrane potential, and the second part of this lecture it is the action potential. If we didn't visit our previous class, you can use this video. We have the first lesson on the final lesson 1. And if I will delete these links, I move it on the place where the lecture is. You see the first lecture, physiology, first lecture for our autumn semester, and we can find this lecture on the place close to this lecture. I move a lot of links for this first final lesson for this semester, and I can move more. So a lot of information about our discipline you can find. So next, what I want to say you, it is a test. Just for teacher, it is a way to control how much information students know. And now we work not in our class, not in a laboratory, just on the distance. For distance education, I use this mark, your mark from the test, for give you a credit mark and final exam mark. So after you know all our information, all our terms. You just do this test. You have only one time for finish your test, about 10-15 minutes, and after that you have your mark, and the teacher, your teacher saw this mark, and completely you have for first final lesson about 7 tests, and in the end we will have the final lesson test, physiology of excitability tissues. So completely all this test will give the information for teacher what final lesson mark will give you this teacher. If you say it is just an automatical program model to give each student this mark, not teacher just fix this information and then to give this information to dean office. So it is all information about how we work in a Moodle page, about structure of our discipline, about teachers. In our Moodle we can find the telephone number of teacher Bobritskaya Olga and Vodopianova Larisa, so we can use just Viber or just a chat in Moodle for connect with these two teachers. And if you have some questions about our discipline, about how we work this semester, just type the message, and I hope very quickly we will find the answer. So it is all for the first time of our practical class, and let's start to study physiology. Do you see the physiology? It is the science of life, and we will study the function of the cell, of the all organs and organ systems, and all organism together. So you know we have the organism, and the part of this organism, it is the organ system, and organ system complete from the organs, and inside this organ we can find different tissues, cells, and from the cells we can find the organelles. And of course, if you have so little level, it's just macro and micromolecule inside of organelles, different cells, and even atoms. So much science you should know for understanding the physiology, and all our science to help to understand what is this homeostasis inside of our body, inside of body of the animals. All physiologists want to know what to do to have always homeostasis inside of our organism. It is the health of our body and animal body, and you know, including to so much meanings. It is a stable state, and of course we should control the stable state. You should to control the function inside of our body. And now we discussed about how we control the function. We have two main systems for control all function in a body. It is a nerve system, and it is the system which use the hormones for control function. So we have homeostasis inside of our body, and for control we use the nerves, nerve system, humoral system, and sometimes we can control in a place. in a place each organ can control its function itself. What way we can to control this function? It is a negative and positive feedback. You will see the video about this. I just comment this video.
What is homeostasis? To be brief and to the point, homeostasis is the relatively constant state maintained by the body. Mainly this means that over time, the internal body will maintain a stable environment. So, for example, if the external temperature is cold or hot, the internal body temperature will remain relatively constant at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit or 37 degrees Celsius. The internal body temperature may vary a little above or below this number, but that will still be considered normal. So, let's say we took someone's body temperature over a certain period of time. If we plot that on a chart, it may look something like this. Here, body temperature rose slightly, and here it fell a little. But the normal body temperature range is from 97.7 to 99.5 degrees. So our subject was inside the normal range throughout that time span. Homeostasis doesn't just apply to body temperature, but many other conditions as well. The human body needs to maintain a certain range of nutrients in the bloodstream, such as water, glucose, sodium, and other elements as well. We get our blood work done from time to time to check and make sure we don't have high glucose or cholesterol levels or too low levels of certain vitamins or minerals. This, in essence, is to check and make sure our body is maintaining homeostatic conditions. Set point is an important term when discussing homeostasis. Set point is a normal range that the body tries to stay in. For instance, the normal range for systolic blood pressure is between 80 and 120. So homeostasis is sought by the body to keep systolic blood pressure in this range or set point. However, the body can change the set point. In many people, weight gain leads to higher systolic blood pressure. This could be due to many factors. But the point is that the body changed the blood pressure set point to keep homeostasis. So now, maybe after the weight gain, someone's systolic blood pressure may be at 140, which is considered unhealthy and at risk for some diseases. But the body felt to keep homeostasis, it needed to change and pump blood harder. The ability of the body to maintain homeostasis is crucial to life, and each of the systems in the body plays important roles. It's oftentimes easier to understand homeostasis by constructing a model to make the concept clearer. Many sources use a fish tank comparison. Here we have a fish tank filled with water. The water represents body fluid or the internal environment. The glass that encloses the water or fluid would be the skin, creating a barrier separating internal from external. The fish in the tank represent cells, which obviously want to stay alive. But the cells need nutrients from the external environment in order to survive. The cells need oxygen, so we can put an air pump in the tank, which would represent the lungs, pumping oxygen into the tank. Okay, now we need a filter to get rid of waste, which would represent the kidneys. Next, we need to add a heater to keep a constant temperature, and the heater would represent the muscles. And finally, we need food, or at least the nutrients contained in food. So we hook up a feeder to our fish tank to feed those fish, or cells, and the feeder would represent the digestive system. So our fish tank is complete, and with everything working together, we have relatively stable and constant conditions, which equals homeostasis. Keep in mind that our fish tank model only covers a few of the aspects involved in maintaining homeostasis, as there are actually far more mechanisms involved in the body keeping at a state of homeostasis.
Did you know just sitting here right now, you're doing something absolutely remarkable? Well, your cells, tissues, organ systems, yes, we just leveled up those biological levels of organization, they're all working towards something called homeostasis. It's a state of balance. Yes, homeostasis means many things in your body. For example, that your blood stays within a certain pH level range. It means that your blood glucose remains within a certain range. It means your internal body temperature stays within a certain range. See, we've mentioned the major body systems before, and that they work together. And today we're going to talk about how they work together using something called positive and negative feedback, and also how this relates to homeostasis. So many years ago, I had a pet bearded dragon. Her name was Debbie, and she was the best lizard ever. Debbie used to sit on our couch with me when I'd watch TV, and she loved to have her chin scratched. I even got her a bearded dragon leash so I could take her outside. Yeah, they make those. Anyway, Debbie loved her heat lamp. She would sit under the heat lamp on her rock, and when she got too hot, she would get off her rock and out of the heat lamp range and go somewhere else. She had a huge enclosure too, because I wanted Debbie to be a happy lizard so she could find an ideal temperature. Why all this talk about Debbie? Well, Debbie is an example of an animal that some people refer to as cold-blooded, or a fancier term, ectotherm. We actually like the fancier term a bit better, though, because her blood isn't necessarily cold. Her body temperature can fluctuate with the environment. But not you. You are warm-blooded, or the fancier term, an endotherm. Your body works hard to keep the internal temperature it keeps. It's also a beautiful example of something called negative feedback. Before we define it, let us show you this example. Say you're in an environment that is very hot, like being outside in the Texas summer heat. That's typically hot. Thanks to nerves which can act as sensors, the brain notices this. It will send signals to counteract this variable. Sweat glands do what they do best, sweat. Heat is lost as that sweat evaporates off your skin. You may have some redness too. That's because your blood vessels are getting wider, dilating, in order to help get rid of that heat. The result, whether you realize it or not, helps you lower your body temperature. But wait, what if you go inside now and the AC is blasting? You'll stop sweating. You may even shiver. The muscle contractions of shivering can generate heat, and those blood vessels will now decrease in diameter size, constrict, to help you conserve the heat, because that makes it harder for the heat to escape. Your body temperature can increase then. This is negative feedback. So a simplified definition, negative feedback is when some variable triggers a counteracting response in order to come back to some set point. If we consider that this whole thing is actually a negative feedback loop, we can see that the negative feedback brings the body back to the set point, which in this case is a stable temperature, keeping homeostasis. Negative feedback is also going on in the regulation of your glucose, your blood sugar. Okay, we're really simplifying this here, as we often do. But when glucose, blood sugar, is too high, one hormone that is released is insulin. I always imagine insulin as this hormone that makes the cells say, "Feed me," because it has the ability to make cells take in glucose. On the flip side, if glucose is too low in the blood, a hormone called glucagon can be released. This hormone can have many effects, and one of them is that it can cause the liver to release glucose into the blood. There's more to the regulation of blood sugar than this, but you can see how this is negative feedback. You have counteracting responses here in order to keep homeostasis. So, what about positive feedback? Positive feedback is when, instead of getting a counteracting response to some variable, you instead intensify the variable. Positive feedback can be like more, instead of let's counteract this. The example that always stuck with me when I was a student is the example about the human baby being born. In biology classrooms everywhere, it's a classic example. When a human baby is ready to be born, there is pressure on the cervix, and that pressure and the hormones involved cause contractions of the uterus, because that's a big part about how the baby is going to be born. More release of hormones will equal more contractions and pressure, which will cause more release of hormones. More release of hormones will mean more contractions and pressure. Contractions help get the baby out, but it's also a part of a beautiful illustration of what positive feedback can do. So why do we care about feedback? Other than, the importance of negative feedback in maintaining homeostasis and the role of positive feedback in many body processes. Well, we also need to understand feedback so we can understand what is happening when there is a problem in the feedback systems. One example, perhaps you've heard of type 1 diabetes. It's a disorder that can mean that your pancreas, which is an organ that is involved with making some hormones like insulin, is not working correctly. Insulin is not produced, and because of that, one issue is that you're not going to be able to get glucose, the blood sugar, into your cells. Glucose outside of the cells cannot be used in cellular respiration. The cells need to take the glucose in to make ATP energy in cellular respiration. Therefore, your cells need to be able to take in the glucose to survive. So many type 1 diabetics need to give themselves insulin and monitor their blood sugar because the negative feedback may not work as it should. Well, that's it for the Amoeba Sisters, and we remind you to stay curious.
So you saw so much organs and systems work together for keep the balance and keep homeostasis inside of body. So we discussed about balance, about how to work our body and animal body, and we see the slide about nervous regulation. Of course, the nerve system take a big part of regulation inside of body. And what way nerve system do this regulation? Regulation, it is the way to keep all system together and gives a way to keep a balance. Reflex, it is a basic active manner of nervous regulation. Reflex arc, it is a way, what way the nerve system can control all together, control all parts of the body. No, it is future our terms about reflex arc when we start to study nerve system. Almost all our practical classes we will discuss about reflex and reflex arc and how our nerve system can control all it. But I hope you know this picture. It is a classical reflectory arc, just very simple reflex. And we have some parts of this reflex. I know it is in all over the world. It is just a simple program of the school education. And next slide about nerve regulation and about some connection with the nerve system and humoral system. With system which produces some fluids, some molecules and parts of our body. It is the endocrine glands can produce the molecules which move in the blood and some liquids inside of our body and move everywhere inside of body and can control the some parts of our organs and system. All together these two systems can control the function of our organs and our system organs. So what way all physiologists can study and investigate all our function of our organs. We have two main ways for investigation, and on this slide we have first one, the cell and molecular level for investigating some function. It is a new methods. Of course, 100 years ago the people can't use these methods because we don't have equipment for this investigation. But now we have a lot of new methods, new equipments, and even we can investigate the gene inside of our nuclear, inside of our cells nuclear. It's new methods and very informative. So the second levels, it's organ and organ system of organs levels and integral, even all organisms together. It's more old methods, even 200-300 years ago people use these methods. For animal bodies and for human body, and next class we will start the use these old methods. So after that we have a classification of experiments, methods for physiology study, and first of them it is an acute experiment in vitro, or on the whole organism, or only use the part of this organism. But for this experiment we have the negative parts of this experiment, usually the animal or the cells or which we use will die. And now people just use the video files, computer program for modeling this process. But sometimes we can't use just modeling a computer program, and we should to take the body. And on physiology in a laboratory, usually we will use the frogs, for example, for study muscle system, for research the nerve system. And next our classes we will just use video from our laboratory classes, and for all our laboratory work we will use the video file, and on the channel you can find this video. So we see this our practical book, and for first our class, this class, you should read some pages, rules for laboratory experiments and basic regulation during the practical, rules for experiments on humans and on animals. In our practical books we will use students sometimes for our experiments. For example, to know what blood pressure you have today, and we use humans' blood for experiments. For example, counting of erythrocyte cells. Of course, for use animals we should do immobilization of this animal, and today you should find this type of immobilization and even type of operation, page 5. And of course on the end of this practical we will discuss what kind of surgical instruments we will use usually. So I don't stop on this kind of experiment. You will find this all information in our practical books. One more, now we use not acute experiment, more and more chronic experiments in physiology. These experiments at first will give to live animal, and it's more humanic kind of experiments, and usually these experiments give more information about how work organisms and its organs all together in usual state, not without decapitation, not without the damage of some parts of this organism. So you can find this all information in our practical book, and all these slides about these questions I just move down, and I want to show you the video about immobilization of animals. This video in Ukrainian language, but just watch it. Usually we work with very big animals, and sometimes domestic animals are dangerous too. It is very difficult to fix the cats, and what equipment we will use on our practical classes you can watch on this video. In this video you saw the information about surgery instruments, and more information you can find in our practical book on the page 6. So for today it is almost all, and I want to give you some homework. In our book Animal Physiology from Genes to Organism, you should read pages about cellular and molecular physiology. One more, on our page in Moodle you can find the video files, and I will add these links in YouTube. And for today, these links about cell membrane, about passive and active transports, and resting membrane potential. And you can find the lecture links to the lecture, resting membrane potential and action potential. It is all for today. I hope I will see you next time, and on our department, and in blue button too. Okay, bye.